we're soldiers. We're shluchim, but the shlichus has to be that you have to know you have a boss. And you can do what you feel. Even if spiritually you feel that this is uplifting you, you got to know if this is your post now. You can't go away from your post.
If you've been enjoying this podcast, please like and subscribe so that others can enjoy it as well. In addition, if you've benefited in any way from Among Chassidim podcast and would like to give something back, you can do so today at derher.org/donate. I'm Yossi Kamen. Welcome to Among Chassidim by Derher, an ongoing upbringing about life as a chassid, our vibrant connection with the Rebbe, and inspired living shaped by the way he teaches us each and every day. This episode is dedicated to the Nishmas Harav Sadia ben Rav Mordechai Olav Shalom Dahan and the Refuah Shlema for Chana Bas Nechamed Dina by Shaul and Shendi Dahan. Ruchem Habayim, Rabbi Gansburg, thank you so much for making the time to be here.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
I understand in your case, there's besides the Eigenes Chosim, there's also a rich history in the Mishpacha of where you come from. So I think it might be a good idea to start that way. I personally remember your father very well from 770, but and know some things, but I obviously don't know all of it. So maybe you can start off that way, and I guess lead into where you enter the picture, where you came from, where you were born, v'chulu.
So if you don't mind, since you want history, I'll start the history one generation earlier.
Perfect.
I was raised by two Zaydas, Zaydas and Bobes. Zaydas both learned in Lubavitch. My mother's parents got married in Lubavitch right after the Rebbe left from Lubavitch. And my father's family is traced to the Alter Rebbe's brother and Chassidim, and so is on my mother's side. My elder Zayde was big Chassid of Rebbe Rashab. And when I was a kid,
you have to say his name.
His name. So my father's father was Berl Gansburg, and my mother's father was Fole Khan, who everybody knows is the father of Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef is my uncle. And so I was Nischanech al Birkov, not only as a Zayde, and Beiker also he was my Melamed. And my Zayde was a warmer Chassidish Reed, a Beindel. And he and my grandmother, Mamash, raised me. My parents were busy with Askonas Tziburis, and my grandmother put me to sleep with Chassidish Maises. Wow. So since I was a little child, that was my upbringing.
This is in Kfar Chabad?
That was in Tel Aviv first. Yeah, maybe I grew up in Tel Aviv till I'll actually bring it up a little later when we left Tel Aviv. But I was raised in Tel Aviv. I learned the Cheder in Tel Aviv. It was a small, nice kehila, very Chassidish kehila. The shul was a center of Lubavitch in Eretz Yisrael. At that time, Kfar Chabad did not develop yet the way it was later. Kfar Chabad started Tovshin Tes. Till they started to stand on their own 2 feet, took quite a few years. Tel Aviv was Merkez Chabad, the shul. The alle Chassidische Yidden they came from Lubavitch, and every Shabbos bar Kiddush they were reminiscent Lubavitch and the Varmkeit from Lubavitch. That was definitely part of the DNA of my upbringing.
So you grew up experiencing this. You remember all of this.
Absolutely. I mean, I was a kid, but let me give you as an example. We were mechunach, the kids. I was a little child, young child. We were mechunach that the biggest schus that we have, the merit is to go and bring farbaisen for the verbringen. We used to fight who should go. I mean, that was the ruach that time. There's certain episodes that I still remember from the Farbrengen. Certain, I mean, I was a kid, but as I said, and definitely as I grew up, my mother and my father. My father was, as I will mention, was memune as when the Rebbe became Rebbe. Actually, I should retract and go back before my birth, since now there's a lot of conversation about going to the army or not. So my father was a bocher tovshin ches, and in the household there was mamish very strong, a very heavy load, schwerigkeit with parnose. So my father went to help my grandfather. At that
But
time,
he was married already?
no.
No.
Also, he was a bocher.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time became the shaila about going to the army or not.
The War of Independence.
The war that's just broke out at that
Right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And the shaila was they knew that the Rabbeim's shita was against Zionis. And here is Tzva Haganah Israel was a Zionist entity. I don't know if it was called yet Tzva Haganah Israel or not, but so there was a Yid, a younger man, geheißen Rebbe Rivkin, Kfar Chabad later, who wrote a letter to the previous Rebbe, and the question was very clear: are we allowed to mobilize to the Zionist army? And I'm quoting: the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote, "Acharei shekitzrei reus הביאו למצב כזה, חייב כל איש להתגייס ולהגן על בני ישראל." אחרי שקצרי ראוס, which means short-sighted people. Let's interpret it whatever you want, but that's what the Rebbe wrote, Friedrich Rebbe. אחרי שקצרי ראוס הביאו למצב זה, is חייב. Obviously, Rebbe spoke about people that were not in yeshiva, and it was clear. But anybody who is not in yeshiva is chayav liizgayas ulehogen al bnei Yisrael. So that was one detail what I think is important to know, that the Rebbe saw it as pikuach nefesh, and there is no ma'aser with Zayin. It's not Zayin. That's not the issue at all. Taike kitzre reus, but now it's a different situation.
So there might be an issue, but we have to protect the Yidden, basically.
Yeah, that was the answer. Another detail story in same vein, the same topic. My father had two more brothers, and both older brothers were mobilized to the army. My uncle Label Gansburg and my father were both mobilized. Their younger brother, he was known as Heshke Gansburg. He was by the Rebbe many years, and he started the Nikunim Bafarbrengen as known. He came to America Tovshin Zion, to the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe. So my Zayde wrote a letter to my uncle, and the teichen was, Ha'achechim yetzul ha'milchama v'atem teishvu pei. How can you sit over there and your brothers are fighting in the front?
Uh-huh.
And my uncle did not, he obviously contemplated what to respond. And he went over to the Rebbe, our Rebbe, and he showed him the letter. Yeah, we're talking about Tovshin Ches.
Yeah.
And he showed the Rebbe the letter. The Rebbe read it, and the Rebbe told him like this. I'll say it in Yiddish and I'll try to translate. Wie bald als der Schwer geheißen hat, du sollst kommen da lernen, ist eber du wirst aufstehen, wirst da wegfahren, bist da deserter. Dein Linien ist sitzen und lernen, und Tomer, du wirst weggehen von deinem, bist du I don't know if he said the word arik or deserter. I think when I heard it from my uncle, he said deserter. So again, we see a very clear shita.
You didn't translate.
I'm sorry. Since you were assigned by my father-in-law to sit and learn, so if you get up now and you go to the army, you're a deserter. Each one has their mission, and to the Rebbe it was very clear. If you sit and learn, that's what your mission is, sit and learn. And if you don't sit and learn, we have the obligation, lahagen al Yisrael. So I thought that was an interesting detail that many people may question that, but this is clear from the Rebbe's Shita. I also want to mention something, and that was after the Rebbe became Rebbe. My father was at that time very young. My father actually was in the army, and he managed to be literally present. His group conquered quite large parts of the north part of Eretz Yisrael, Emek Beichan and Natzeret, and that region, Emek Israel. And then they transferred them to the south, to the Gaza area, and there's a whole story. Mamash had Mesiras Nefesh, which I don't think it belongs here, but it does belong. My father was wounded. He was 6 months in the hospital, and they grafted him. Baruch Hashem, there's many stories regarding that. My father also wrote a diary for the entire duration that he was in the army. But after he was released from the hospital, he got engaged to be married. And he was a chosen when Yud Shvat took place. The chasana was scheduled for Beis Nisan. That was scheduled before Yud Shvat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost sure it was with the bracha of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So at that time, everybody begged the Rebbe to accept Nasias, and my father had a brother and a future brother-in-law here. Rabbi Yosef came right after Yud Shvat, which he was here already, and my uncle was here from before, my other uncle. So,
by the way, the younger brother went to learn, but he didn't, I guess.
Who?
Yeah.
My father wrote to the Rebbe told him, it's back and forth letters. At the end, the Rebbe told him not to go. At the end. Okay. First, he got permission. Then my Zayde said, Poshti must have help. So the Rebbe told him not to come. He begged to come, but it didn't work out.
Okay.
But what I want to say is that everybody started to ask the Rebbe that he should accept the Nasias and the Kabbalah's Nasias. So my father wrote to the Rebbe a letter. He was still a bocher, asking the Rebbe to accept the Nasias. And there is a letter that the Rebbe responded to him, Kloli Proti, like a general letter. And then the Rebbe writes Ksav, and the Ksav is published in the Igris. And I just want to read the couple of words that the Rebbe wrote in the Ksav Yad. I have it copied over here. Umashe Koisev, he's quoting what my father wrote. Ono, Husu Oleinu, Unzait, Hulu. So my father wrote, please have Rachmanis on us, have mercy upon us and accept. But the Rebbe copied, Ono Husu Oleinu, Unzait, Hulu. That's what the Rebbe writes. Harei Loze, Tzorich Lies, Hayecheles. For that you need to have the ability. And the Rebbe writes like this. Keches Atzmim, Keches Hayulim, Keches Agluim, Ushleimus, Levushe, Machshova, Diberu Maise, V'chulu V'chulu. You need to be complete, perfect, in essential powers of the Neshama, obviously, Koiches Yulim, that's the next stage, revealed koiches and completion in thought, speech, and action, etc., etc. So, first of all, we can see what the Rebbe was looking within him, and what a Rebbe is. It's a mehrende Gesach. The second thing I was thinking to myself already, my father was then a bocher still, a chosen. Such words, Rebbe didn't write stamazay to anybody. So that was about that.
And let me ask you, your father, he never saw the Rebbe, I'm assuming.
My father until no,
At that point.
At that point he didn't see. Tovshin Yuches, my father came for the first time.
So he wrote to the Rebbe?
He wrote us to ask the Rebbe, and a couple the Rebbe as a nosi. And the Rebbe answered him with such words.
Wow.
So again, I think that was something that is negaya. This is a published thing, but I felt that this right thing to bring it up. I want to say one more thing if we go in the history. A couple more things. In the Rebbe, and this I heard from my father, it's also some of it is printed. The Rebbe wanted that Eretz Yisrael should be led the way the Rebbe wants. And to be honest, the older Chassidim had a very hard time shifting from the era of the previous Rebbe, which, although the Rebbe also demanded doing with others, Rebbe sent Shluchim in America, etc., in other places maybe, but the Chassidim had a hard time to switch.
You mean to like Hafat Samayonis?
The Rebbe demanded outreach. Was it davnen? Was it outreach? This kind of things. The Rebbe then demanded that all Moisdes should the administrations should resign, and then he will appoint them anew. In other words, that they're his workers. They have to be subjected to him, not from before. And most of them the Rebbe reappointed, but the Rebbe did change. The Rebbe put a controller, mevaker, on each and every one of the meisdes, which the Rebbe appointed.
Like a financial?
No,
in general.
Financial and what's going on. He was responsible to report to the Rebbe. The Rebbe writes it in a letter. I've seen the letter clear, that the mevaker is not Chavra and Hole. He is the controller, and he has to report to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe will say what to do.
Which Meses are you talking about?
All Agudas Sidei Chabad, and the Tiras Emes, and Keilel Chabad, and the Yeshiva. All Meses had to resign, the Anholes, and the Rebbe reappointed, and the Rebbe added in most cases. Sometimes the Rebbe changed, but the Rebbe added the Feresh, a controller in each and every one of the Meisdes. This is something also that not too many people realize, that the Rebbe Mamish wanted. At that time, Agudas Sidei Chabad was all from the Elter Chassidim, and when the Rebbe started to demand, it was very hard for them. So first, the Rebbe instructed that there should be a representation of the Tzeirim in Agudas Sidei Chabad, and it was two people were appointed. That was my father, Rabbi Yisrael Leibov, who later became the Yeshivosh. So they started in Agudas Sidei Chabad, and it still didn't move anywhere. So then the Rebbe was meyased in Tafshin Yud Beis, a separate institution called Tzirei Agudas Chabad, and they were appointed as the Vad of Tzirei Agudas Chabad.
So before the Rebbe made
Tzirei Agudas Chabad, the Rebbe tried to go through Agudas.
Yeah, but I'm saying in America, the Rebbe was miyasid.
No, it was later, much later.
Yeah, Tzirei Agudas Chabad was later.
When the Rebbe was miyasid Tzirei Agudas Chabad in America, it was Bedugmas Eretz Yisrael.
Okay,
That's what the Rebbe wrote then. The first Tzir Agudas Chabad was in Eretz Yisrael.
So that was your father in Israel Leibov.
Yeah, and then they added to the Anhola more, but they were the first. My father became, I think, the Maskir, Yisrael Leibov, the Yeshiv Rosh.
And that's how it became that Tzir Agudas Chabad was running all the pullahs
It was
in Eretz
running
Yisrael.
school. Yeah, it was the Rebbe had pushed a hard time to accomplish, and even then, it was very hard to move that. Nobody literally moved out of the hub of Chabad, whether it was Tel Aviv, Yerushalayim, or Kfar Chabad later. The Rebbe had to fight it. So now I'll come to the next stage.
You mean like the concept of Shlichus, that whole idea?
Concept of Shlichus, that's correct. When my Tovshin Yud Ches, my Zayde came for the first time to the Rebbe Tovshin Yud Zayin, and my father went for Tishri Tovshin Yud Ches. My father had several Yechidas, 3 times, I think the Rebbe called him in, gave him all kinds of instructions. But one of the things the Rebbe has then demanded, I think it's an interesting story, I told it over quite a few times. The Rebbe demanded from my father that when he comes back, the Rebbe wants at least 10 new schools of the Reshet Ol Yosef Yitzchok, that the Rebbe has that time established for schools from.
So what's the idea of the Reshet?
The Reshet was beferish for Olim, for actually I saw a letter, the Rebbe said that they should establish schools only in places that there is no frum schools from any type of denomination. This is Aguda or Mizrahi. Nobody, we're not catering for the frum schools. We're catering for people that used to be in their hometowns, in the Oriental countries especially, observant. They came to Eretz Yisrael, and they took him away from Yiddishkeit. And that time, actually, I should mention, there was a group of yeshiva bochrim called Peilei HaMachaneh Atorani. And the head was Reb Sholem Ber Lifshitz. He was Tomim, and he headed the organization, and Rabbi Yisrael Leibov became their secretary later. In Tzach, he didn't take money, but over there, Poshet for Parnosa, he became their secretary. He was quite loaded. So they helped a lot to go into freie places and try to register children. So my father, all the way, I think from Tovshin Yud Beis, he became a teacher. My mother became a teacher. My mother first was teaching Beis Yaakov, and afterwards she moved to teaching Reshet. And the Rebbe demanded 10 new schools. There was, I think, 3 or 4 schools until then. There was a school in Yafo, in Zarnuga, in Kfar Saba, in Malcha. I think there was 4 schools before. The Rebbe told my father he wants 10 new schools. 10. So, an Yechides, my father mentioned to the Rebbe, Chob Meire, I'm afraid that when I come back, it won't be accepted. 10 new schools, a wilde Zach, it's wild. So the Rebbe told them, Ihr seid gewesen auf dem Ziehen? Have you been to the oil? The Friedrich Rebbe. So my father answered, mit dem Guf bin ich gewesen. With my body I was there. So the Rebbe said, oh, mit den Neshama seid ihr gewesen a Sach früher. With the soul you have been much earlier. Seid ihr doch gewesen auf dem Ziehen? Bemele hat ihr die Keches. You have been to the Zion, so you have the power to go and do so.
Oh.
It's also
yeah. By the way, Stam, for interest, did your father ever saw the Friedrich Rebbe?
My father did not see the Friedrich Rebbe.
Yeah,
my father saw the Rebbe's father, because on their way out of Russia, my father was a child, 9 years old, so they went through Yekaterinoslav, because my Zayda's parents were there. So at that time, Reb Levi tested him in Gemara, I think. So he saw Reb Levi, but the Friedrich Rebbe, I don't think he saw.
No.
My father's bris was the week of Yud Beis Tammuz when the Rebbe came out of jail. My father was born Pei Zayin. And the Rebbe went to Malachovke. My Zayda lived in Moscow, which is nearby. So at the beginning, the Rebbe said maybe he'll try to see if there should be Sandek, but the Friedrich Rebbe. But then it was too risky, and the Rebbe canceled. So the Rebbe did not come to the bris.
But there was a svara that the Friedrich Rebbe would come back to Moscow to be the Sandik.
No, Malachovke and Moscow is next to each other.
So they were going to do. They were going to do by the Friedrich Rebbe or the Friedrich Rebbe?
I don't know the details, but it was cancelled because it was too risky.
Okay.
So there was a close connection, obviously. There was a Vad in Moscow that was leading all the underground work for the Rebbe, and there was my two Zaydas and the Meish Goraye. That was the official Vad. So they were very close knitted before they became a Chutonim.
And then they were all together in Tel Aviv later.
Yeah.
This group.
This group, yeah.
Very interesting. So back to your father.
So that's what I want to say. So when he came back, he started to work, and it wasn't easy financially and from the government. And
wasn't there government funding for it, or that didn't happen yet?
Government funding. He had to have X amount of kids, and then after you had the X amount of kids was also not easy. But it was 3 new schools were established by Peil Mamish, and I would say that this is the beginning of Shlichus in Eretz Yisrael. It was my father and Reb Uri ben Shachar and Reb Avraham Mordechai Zilberstrom were the first individuals that left to establish the schools.
So they picked up their families and moved to these places.
So my father, in the beginning, there was nowhere to live, so the family stayed in Tel Aviv, and my father was there alone, and he came every other Shabbos home. It was not easy.
Where was this?
In Ta'anach, which is the school is still in existence. Today is a nice group of Lubavitchers there.
Oh.
They became later the only school. They kicked out the Freil. In the first year, there was 2 schools. That's a story on its own. I don't want to go into it, but
so your father was living in Tanakh, and your family's in Tel Aviv.
And then they came from the Rebbe a letter, and then we have the letter that the Rebbe says that the family has to be together. So or he has to leave, or the family would come, and my mother moved with us. And here came also.
What do you mean? You moved with your mother to your father?
My father, yeah, to Tanakh.
To Tanakh. So you went on Shlichus.
Yeah, that was the.
So you like the first.
Nobody was calling it Shlichus at that time. Your phone.
So you're the first mishpacha in Eretz Yisrael that did such a thing.
I said there was 3 mishpachas at the same time. What's interesting actually is also when my mother decided that she's moving with the family, she started to be harassed by Ziknei Chassidim that she's not allowed to do it. What kind of meshugas, the kids, they have nowhere to, there's no school, there was nothing mamish. And,
where is Tanakh?
Tanakh is, if you know where Afula is,
so it's very far.
At that time, 4 hours drive at that time from Tel Aviv. And at that time, there was no cars. It was far. It was by the Syrian-Jordanian border at the time. It wasn't near Amokim Yishuv. I'll soon tell you about it something, but let me finish what I'm saying now. So my mother wrote to the Rebbe. And she wrote that people tell her that your husband is crazy and he's mafkir everybody. I mean, it's not Lubavitch. And we have a full large page letter from the Rebbe to her. Godel schuso ve'ashrei chelko. That she was zeiche to be able to go and strengthen Yiddish Kinder and Chinuch. And a very, very strong letter, and the Rebbe is over there, use the word chastising. What kind of chassidim is will tell you not to go? You're calling him Ziknei Chassidim. It was a very strong letter from the Rebbe. The Rebbe was mechanech. It wasn't. It was a change in the whole perception that we don't live where the hub is. We got to go out.
It's amazing. It's amazing how the Rebbe, also in America, so the first shluchim, so there's a bunch of letters to Alter Chassidim or to parents. Like the Rebbe had to revolutionize the whole thing.
Yeah, it was very hard. Now, to be honest, we moved to Tanach. I was in a cheder. The cheder in Tel Aviv was a chassidish cheder on a very nice level, so to speak. And I came to Tanach.
How old were you?
I was 8.5. And there was, where are they sending me? In school there, my sister, who's younger than me, had to go to 4th, 5th grade when she was 6 years old or something like that, 7 years old. There was nothing there. There was no. They used to. The people came from Kurdim, Kurdistan, Turkey, and Parsim. That was the 3 villages that Tanach comprised. Very, very Amaratis. Not that they were Erlich Yidden. Them is fine Yidden, but they didn't learn. Shabbos, everybody used to come to shul, take off their shoes, sit on the carpet. The only one that knew how to read is the Chacham. They used to chant along with him. After davening, everybody went up on the bike and go and work in the field. Not because they wanted to be Mechalo Shabbos, because they did not know that you're not allowed to. It was terrible. With Gashmias also, it was nothing. There was a mud, and it was not a Mokim Yishuv. We didn't have gas. We didn't have. The first time my parents bought a freezer because there was nothing else there. Food. It was not a picnic. But going back to my upbringing, so where do I go to school? So my father found that there was a yeshiva from the Peilim, I mentioned before, this group of Bachrim, and they opened a yeshiva for immigrants, for Olim.
It's not Lubavitch officially.
Not Lubavitch, and my father said, let's see how it goes. So I went there. After 2 months, they saw that there's no tachlis, it's mamish nothing. And they sent me away from home to Kfar Chabad. I was 8.5. At that time, to send away a kid, there was no telephone, obviously no other way of communication. I was sent to Kfar Chabad. I was today. It's a normal thing. You send kids away. It's also not easy, but it's a normal. At that time, I believe it was a first to take a 8 years old and send them away. I saw my parents most probably 3 times over the year.
Wow.
So
your mom is
that's the pioneers.
You're the pioneer of the Tziri Hashluchim as well.
I would say so. Again, I don't believe that there was anybody else in Eretz Yisrael. To best of my knowledge, that was the first. To send away a kid, it was Meshuggah.
And you stayed with your Bab and Zay, you lived in Kfar Chabad at that time?
No, I stayed with my grandfather's brother. My grandfather had a Rebbe Khan, Berel Khan, his parents. So I stayed in their house, a great uncle, an aunt. And I was in Cheder in Kfar Chabad. To be honest, I don't think it was as hard on me as on my mother. I was a Ben Yochid. I have 2 sisters. And it was very hard. But Baruch Hashem.
Ashrei Chelkecha V'Geidos Chuscha.
That's Baruch Hashem.
Okay.
So let's move. Again, I just want to give you a little bit more history, so I think some people will benefit. The first time I have seen that the Rebbe referred to letters about me, in particular, was my achnos el. There's 3 letters from the Rebbe about my achnos el. Once my father asked, I apparently something I was in gesund, it's not completely, so should he put me to cheder or not? And the Rebbe wrote, and I copied it. The Rebbe wrote that Yisyatzu im reifem yidideim im yaskim oz yochel lahatchil levaker b'cheder, that if the doctor, who is a doctor friend, will agree, then I can start to visit the cheder. Then my father got a letter by the words Nehenesi Mima Shebnei, and my name, Hischil Levaker B'Cheder. Rebbe writes Nehenesi. I was very pleased that he started. And the third letter is to my Zayde, and this is actually a Meifes Goli from the Rebbe, which I brought the Igres. The letter is published in the Igres. I have a cousin who is 6 months older than me, and he had achnos el cheder more or less the same time as I did. And the Rebbe writes to my Zayde, and I'm opening it up, and I want to, it's in the Igris, and I did not know about the letter until the Igris were published. But it's a little scary, because the Rebbe writes like this to my Zayde at the end of a letter. Mesaimim betoiv.
This is which Zayde?
Fole kan. Umesaimim betoiv bepsurose ateva. We're concluding the letter with Yegud Besura, Yegud tiding that you brought, that Erev Shabbos Kedesh Breishis Ichnisu es Nechdei, that they brought in Erev Shabbos Breishis, your grandson, not me, my cousin, Lecheder. V'yirotzen shemi ben chomesh lemikro, yigdal ben eser lemishno, ben yud gimel lemitzvahs, kipsaka mishna. So just like similar to the bar mitzvah letter, that you go from stage to stage. So I was pleased. Next paragraph. Velepsurose hateva, asher b'yem beis mar cheshvan, ichnisu es nerde Yosef Simcha shlita l'cheder, yirotzen sheyigda,
Shlita.
Shlita, sheyigda liyeschosi dirishomayim v'lamden. So you have 2 eniklach, both were taken into cheder, and the Rebbe gave each one a different bracha. My cousin is gesund, but he didn't remain a Lubavitcher Chosid. So Bachnos el Cheder, the Rebbe already said, gives him a bracha that Yigdal, etc. And the bracha to the next enikel that you should be Chosid Rishomayim Belamden. I don't know how they took it at that time. Obviously, I wasn't aware of it. But this is a letter actually from yesterday. Chof Tes Mar Cheshvan Tes Zayin. Tovshin Tes Zayin. It's exactly from yesterday, 70 years.
The Rebbe is setting out the map.
Yeah, I'm saying this is a Meifes Golu. I mean,
yeah.
I also have an excerpt which maybe kedai to read in the letter that the Rebbe wrote to my mother before she went to Ta'anach. The Rebbe writes like this: Bizmanenu zeh, asher le'achrei zman ha'hashmodes, Rachmon al-Islam v'le'olenu. In our days, after the Holocaust, u'beder de'ikves de Mashiach, in the time of the hills of Mashiach, kepizgam kveit kocha meir v'chomi, in izeh melech HaMoshiach, eimedachar kosleinu, So Moshiach is standing behind the wall. Ve'einoi mechake elo lesium ha'avedo hamuteles al dereinu. And he's only waiting for the work that is placed on our generation. Shehikalo lefi erech ma'avedos she'aderes shekodmuno. That our avedo is lefi erech lighter than the previous generation task. Ari al kol echod ve'achas lekayem hane'emar bekosuv. Each one has to fulfill what is written. Hacholosh yemar giberani. That the weak should say, I'm strong. Ubeachloto v'tekev bozeh. Moitzi gam hakeches hane'elomim shiyu begilui. That will bring out these hidden powers that each and every one of us has that should come out in a revealed way. Ubemele yuchalifel kam upom im kocho masher im hoyo zeh bezman rogil ubetnoim regilim. So you can do a lot more than if it would be normal times. This is, again, words that are, this is in that time that was extremely, extremely pushing. You have to do what your job is. Don't talk to anybody, do what you have to.
It's a very foundational letter on Dereinu, what our generation.
Very clear. There's very clear instructions with the Rebbe's Keches.
One of the integral components of being a chassid are the Chassidische Yomim Tovim and Yom Pagra. Whether it's Hey Tevis, Yud Shvat, Yud Aleph Nisan, or Gimel Tammuz. These days give us an opportunity to connect with our Rabbeim, to connect with each other, and be better Chassidim. What is the story behind each of these days? How did the Rebbe commemorate and celebrate these days? And most importantly, what are the lessons, the takeaways, and the action items Hamaisa Hua Ikir needed for each of these days? All of this and much, much more are answered in the new set recently published by Der Herr. Our Days is a journey through the Chabad calendar in story, meaning, and practice. With over 700 beautiful, glossy pages with elevated content, beautiful, beautiful photographs, you, your family, and friends will enjoy and live with each Chassidische Yom Tov. This book is a must for every Lubavitcher home, for every shul, for every school. It is a perfect gift item. This will not collect dust. It will be used day after day, month after month, year after year. You can have the set. Go to derher.org/our days. Order your set today and start living with the Chassidische Yom Tov.
When my father decided to send me to Kfar Chabad, actually, also we got a letter from the Rebbe. Not we, it was they, my parents. ונגיע לחדר לימוד בנום, יוסף שמחה שליטה, כסף כמה הצועס בזה, ובכלל, ובכל הנקודס, צריך ללמז במוקים שדרגס העיר השמיים כדבוי. That's the first thing. That he has to learn, the child, in a place that Yerushalayim is kedeboy. Obviously, over there, the Yerushalayim was not up to par. Kain, sheyebas komosoi, that should be with my consent. V'chein bas komas umasim l'rtzein ho'em, and my mother should be consenting. Ubehesem letnoi ma'amurim yachlitu v'tiyeh la'atzlochose v'talmotero b'chol ha'mitztarech. So based on those conditions, it should be successful. So, again, Baruch Hashem, Betrochov Asher Ironu.
It's amazing that the Rebbe saying that you have to agree as well.
I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
I was 8 years old. Should be Bahaskamose.
Amazing. Someone told me that he had a difference of opinion with his father about which yeshiva he should go to. He was a bacher already. He wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, and his father didn't want. His father was a Rosh Yeshiva in Lubavitch, Adayim. And his father wrote to the Rebbe that my son wants to go here. I think he should go there. And the Rebbe answered, Kitzain benam sheyichya. Has to be what your son wants. Yeah.
Mokrim Shili B'chofetz.
Right.
Yeah, Bocher is different than a kid.
8-year-old.
I was 8 years old. But obviously, the Rebbe wanted to be with my consent.
Okay, so what was it like in Kfar Chabad in those days?
Chabad was listen, it was definitely a Chassidish. I mean, it's new to me after the few months that I was away, but Baruch Hashem, I had an excellent group of Chaverim and the Malamdim, the Cheder, I don't have to tell you, and I grew up in Kfar Chabad since then. Kfar Chabad, I had the opportunity to learn 1 year. My father learned by Reb Sheil Brook. At that time was in Tel Aviv, but Reb Sheil in my days was in Rishon LeZion. That is yeshiva. My father very much wanted I should learn in Rishon.
There was already yeshiva in Kfar Chabad?
The yeshiva was in Lud. The yeshiva
He was in Lud, and Sheil Brook was in Rishon, a different yeshiva.
Yeah, the Reb Shlomo Chaim was the mashpia in Lud. The big yeshiva Gdela, was in Lud. Kfar Chabad was a cheder. So when it was already, I think it was in the middle of the 8th grade, Pesach time, my parents then moved from Ta'anach. They established a school in Chulon, also in a neighborhood which was the lowest class, Jesse Cohen. It was crime and everything. Baruch Hashem, my father opened a school. There was over 400 students. My mother was teaching. It started from nothing, but the first year my mother and father taught. My father was the principal and teacher. My mother the second class, and then they didn't want they should be together. The Misrad HaChinuch. So my mother was teaching in Bat Yam in Lubavitch school in the Reshet. My father was the Menayel in Chulon. Quite a few years. So, and then I lived at home, obviously, in Kfar Chabad. And then I was a year in Rishon, Reb Sheil. He was my Magichir in Gemara. He was my Magichir in Nekutei Torah. We learned by him. And then I moved to Lud. I learned 2.5 years in Lud. That's Yeshiva Ktana and Mechina. It was very, very strong, especially the last year in Mechina. It was a very strong year. We had the Rosh Yeshiva was Reb Zelik Feldman over Shalom, and then it's a longer year. Rabbi Yosef Abrams became by us Mashpia, and he put into us more than anybody else. Rebbe, Sidis, and Varmkeit. I owe him a lot.
Really?
Yeah, he was. I would say that the biggest push that the Kita got the desire to go to the Rebbe was from him. Well, there was other factors, but I would say he was a tremendous push.
To go learn by the Rebbe, or just to go visit?
Rebbe, no, it wasn't visiting. It was the Indian from Rebbe.
Mm-hmm.
I also had the privilege, I would say. My father came from the Rebbe. Every plane that passed by, and Kfar Chabad is near the airport. I wish I would be on the plane going to the Rebbe. I was a kid. I grew up on that. Yeah. It digs in. I wish I could have gone I can go on the plane to the Rebbe. So that was a big DNA investment in me. But the truth of the matter is, my father wanted very much I should go to the Rebbe to learn. My father, my bar mitzvah was Tovshin Chof Daled. Tovshin Chof Hey Pesach, my father was here, was by the Rebbe. And when he was on Yechidus, he asked the Rebbe if it's appropriate I should come to learn there. And the Rebbe said, as a young, dort is the Ashgocha besser. That so young, the supervision is there better. So obviously I waited, but the next year Already, ich bin schon nicht sehr jung, and we moved to Kfar Chabad, to the Zal, to the Yeshiva Gdeila. So I asked again if I can come.
You wrote to the Rebbe?
Yeah. My father was definitely on my side. And the Rebbe sent me to the Anhole. To my surprise, Reb Shlomo Chaim was not against it. Although the Anhole didn't give me an official agreement to go, we decided that I'm going. And if I'll be able to settle over here, the Rebbe will be masking, I'll stay. And if not, after Tishrei, I'll come back. So I came, Tishrei, Tovshin Chov, Sof Chovov, Elul Chovov. I came to 770. What was interesting is that my uncle, my father's brother, Heshke, has Yemeledes Elul. So he went into Yechidus before I was in New York yet. So on Yechidus, the Rebbe asked him, "No, what's going on with your nephew? Did he come already? No, you should settle Gesundheit." So before I came, I knew already that I'm settling. Yeah. So the Rebbe, again, I came from the Rebbe that I was before the army yet, so I didn't have a problem leaving. I was young.
Right.
The next year when I went in Yechidus, I already got Tzav Kriya. In other words, I got a letter. I need a draft letter. My mother was thinking, should I not go, and later on I'll have problems. So I asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told me to stay. The Rebbe told me to do what the others that stayed here, I should do the same thing. The Rebbe told me to stay. That's it. That was Yechidus.
And you had other chaverim that came?
I had chaverim that came. I have Chaver Baruch Villalem, who came a year before me, and the same year with me came a few Yossi Losh, Yossi Paris. A year later came Chaim Prus. There was a whole group. I would say our Kita was moving towards it. We were very much infused with.
So maybe you could describe a little bit your coming to the Rebbe for the first time, like what that was like.
I mean, obviously, I remember the first time seeing the Rebbe. So the Rebbe by Minche, Ben Chechionu. And the first Tishrei, I mean, Tkiyas, I remember the first time Tkiyas was, I don't know how to describe, but definitely, I remember Arkophis, I remember Napoleon's March. I would say those are the highlights. I did not go in Yechidus till my Yemeledes, because I stayed here.
Because you weren't a guest.
That's correct. I knew already that I'm staying, so I didn't. The first time I went in Yechidus was for my Yemeledes. That was this. But then I went to Newark, and I studied in Newark for 2 years.
So you were
used to come for every upbringing. We used to come in. Newark, we were excellent 2 years. The first year especially. Rabbi Saul Friedman was our Rosh Yeshiva, and Melech Mashpiach, Nachum Sternberg was a Mashgiach. It was a solid 2 years, especially the first year. And then we came to 770.
After 2 years in Newark?
Yeah.
So this is Chazayin Chavtes.
Yes, it's Sof Chavches. We moved to 770.
And
I was 770 basically till I got married. But 1 year, Tovshin Lamed, we were sent to Ocean Parkway. We were the first kvutza. The Rebbe spoke a Sikha then. So that was Shlichus. We were in Ocean Parkway as Elter Bochrim, as Shluchim. But we came for all Farbrengens, also from Newark. I didn't miss any Farbrengens. even the few sudden verbringings, somehow I was there.
Somehow you
So
made it. I have a question. When you were in Eretz Yisrael, so there was no hookup those years. So you arrived to the Rebbe. It's the first time.
You're reminding me. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, go ahead. No.
You're reminding me an episode that is worthwhile, most probably, to describe. People will not understand. The relationships with the Rebbe was very limited. There was a maimer, a siche, the odd that came in, the odd picture, and that's basically it. And the emphasis also that you need to learn. Mugedike Maimorim. It was not. I remember the first time I was in Tel Aviv, must have been Zion. I was a little kid, and somebody brought 8mm strip. There was no videos. There was 8mm from the Rebbe. Either was a shtickle Verbringen, a small snap from the Verbringen.
A video.
It was no video. It was 8mm. Like a very primitive in those days. But it was the first time that we saw the Rebbe on a wall. So the whole Anash in Tel Aviv, Teri Mishpachas, whatever it was, gathered. I remember Moshe Ashkenazi, Rav Ashkenazi, Moshe, in his house, and they got a machine. We saw the Rebbe on the wall. This I do remember. I remember at Kedikach that there was one guy, and I'm not going to mention his name, he wanted to see the Rebbe a little closer. He doesn't know what a movie is, what a video is. He got closer, and the Rebbe is Nelam Gibom.
He's standing in front of the...
We were so far from that era. But that was the first time, I think, that we saw the Rebbe in movement, to whatever extent. It was without audio, it was video.
Right.
I remember that. I mean, in other words, it made a Reishem as a child to see the Rebbe for the first time, besides the art picture. I also remember, if you're asking in my upbringing, the relationship with the Rebbe, I remember when the Shluchim, Tovshin Tezayin, came. After Rachmana Litzlan, the 5 students and their counselor were murdered by terrorists, the Fadayuns, we call them. The Rebbe sent 10 bochim from America, 1 from England, and 1 from France, and 1 from, I think, is Australia. So it was 12 bochim to come and comfort the Kehillah of Anash. It is known already who they are. They are Rabbi Krinsky, Rabbi Shem Tov, Rabbi Korf, Ibodel Chaim, Ben Chaim Lechaim, and others. I can tell you that my father was not home for 3 weeks, for as long as they were there. My father took me to the airport to greet them. I remember in my mind on my father's shoulders, and the Rebbe Shluchim. It was such an awesome thing. It's the Rebbe Shluchim. The Shluchim also verbringed with all the children. And I remember gathering in Kfar Chabad in front of the old shul, Beis Menachem. That time was the old shul. And they taught us Mipikel, and they gave each and every one of us as a gift from the Rebbe a mincha ma'ariv and a small bottle of kosher bracha. Those are my memoirs. I remember also Shabbos, a few other episodes. I was a kid, as I said, but I still remember it. It made a tremendous impression. I would say that these kashas to the Rebbe definitely intensified in a tremendous way through those shluchim. That Nasi the shluchim, it was tremendous. And us kids were definitely there. We benefited from it. So this was our connection. But otherwise, Chof Hei, the Rebbe was Magia a few siches So we learned it. But
The Rashi says.
yeah. And then also started to come tapes. I remember a few.
Oh, that's I wanted to know if you ever heard that. But yeah.
Yes. I remember sitting, you'd be Stamos of Verbringen. I remember it. I hazarded it a few times. Yes, we did get that period. We started to get tapes that we were sitting the whole Zal and listening to the whole Verbringen. Not live, obviously. It was a month later. I don't remember when it was. But that was
the whole yeshiva sat and listened to it.
yes. That was a whole major event.
Mm-hmm.
So things at the aim.
From that Verbringen.
Yeah.
So when you came to the Rebbe, so you're familiar with it, but obviously everything's very completely new.
It was new. It was definitely new, and the Rebbe definitely was our life in yeshiva. There was nothing else. I mean, at least I can talk for myself that was the center of our lives. I want to tell you another thing that comes to mind from that kufa. In Parshas Tetzaveh, Topshin Chov Zayin, was the first time Thursday night I went in on Yechidus was my first Yechidus. That's why I got that Verbringen. I didn't go back to Newark. I stayed in New York, and it was a sudden Verbringen, so I didn't miss it. The Rebbe Chalakov called in a group of Bochrim, 8 Bochrim at that time, and proposed to them to go to Australia for 2 years with certain conditions. But 6 Bochrim went. But Shabbos was a merendike Verbringen, and I do remember quite well that Verbringen. I have seen many Chazoras of that Verbringen, so I don't want to go into it. But I do remember the Rebbe's was gelernt in Temchet Mimim, nu Zolop. That was, as a kid, that was tremendous. But what I want to say is that before they left, there was a Tzeischem L'Sholem, a good bye party for them, upstairs on 770. Rabbi Chodakov spoke. And I do remember what he spoke, one of the things. He said that in Ayem Yem, the Rebbe writes that an neshama comes down to this world for 70, 80 years to do a favor once in Gashmias and Kolshke and Ruchnias. So he said, can you imagine, a neshama valgertzach, a neshama runs around to find, where is my Shlichus? Here the Rebbe took a group of young bochim and tells them, Marebetz boy, this is your Shlichus, why you came down in Elam Hazeh. This is your place. So that was, again, a push towards the whole idea of Shlichus. I still remember it.
Right.
So that was a very strong nekuda that we were nischanech that without that there is no life, so to speak. So if you don't mind, I want to skip a little bit. I want to come to a roy I had from the Rebbe, Zettel, when I came to Einas HaShiduchim. In Yeshiva, Baruch Hashem, I had the zchus not only to be with my mashpim and Rosh Yeshivas in Yeshiva, but on top of that, I, Baruch Hashem, had in New York 2 uncles, which I owe a tremendous akoras hatev. I used to, on a regular basis, eat al shulchan nom. After Verbringen the Kvias, I was by Rabbi Yosef, and I had the zchus to have Chazore right after the Verbringen. Many times Rabbi Yosef Weinberg, that was supposed to speak on the radio, Mitzvah Shabbos, used to come along. And
so he used to do, so Rabbi by Suda Shabbos would do Chazara.
Yeah. I'm going to say something. I don't know if it's negay or not negay, but it's an interesting detail that I remember. There was a certain individual who got involved with Lubavitch. He came from a frum Yekisha background. He was an educator, and he got involved with heading Lubavitch school. He was the Manal. And I believe that was his first time by the Rebbe, Tishrei, the end of Tishrei, middle of Tishrei. And at that time, the Rebbe had a tremendous koch in Rashi Sichas. The style that the Rebbe spoke then many times of Hebrew, as Rashi is learning with a Ben Chomesh Lemikro, with a 5 years old, and the Rebbe used to use the expressions the Ben Chomesh Lemikro asks, and the Ben Chomesh Lemikro answers, and the Ben Chomesh Lemikro bevornt, is commenting, and so on and so forth. So it was after Farbrengen, and this individual came also to Rabbi Yosef's house to hear Chazor. And as they were, it was a Gishmak Rashi Siche. I don't remember, I think it was Pasha Vayelech somehow. But it was a Gishmak Rashi Siche, and the Rebbe spoke and elaborated on it. And he's sitting with open mouth and drinking every word. And after a half hour discussing the Rashi, he asked to Rabbi, I'm sorry, if you don't mind, I want to ask, who is the Mechaber from Mechomesh Lemikra? He thought that there is a sefer that is called Mechomesh Lemikra, and Mechomesh Lemikra asks, and Mechomesh Lemikra answers. I remember that it was so live, it was Stam Shtusim, but I still remember that.
So, Mr. your connection to Rebbe Yale also helped you understand the importance of the Sichus and to be involved in it.
Rebbe Yale gave us shurim from the day we came to from the year we came to 770, unofficial. He started to teach us every Thursday night in 749 in the kitchen. And later in Ocean Parkway, Tovshin Lamed, he gave us morning and evening. He used to come. Mamish, we learned Samach Vov by him, and he put it into our brain. He was so devoted. And later, we have a very special relationship with him. And to be honest, I was very, very much influenced by my other uncle, who was a warmer Chassidischer Ingerman, Iberi gegeben belev nefesh. To the Rebbe, he had the schus that he
Heshke Gansburg.
He used the Likutei Siches. He and Rebbe Heshke Dubravsky were making the loshen. How do you say it? Signan.
The styling of the language.
Styling and the language improved. He was many hours, and he definitely made a mark on me as well, as far as the warmth and the desire to see this and to the Rebbe and to Shlichus. I had a very good group of chaverim.
Were you around? Were you there like when his wife passed away? That
Yes, I was in the house then.
You were living there?
I came. I was in Ocean Parkway that year, but Tishrei, I was in their house. I was living in their house literally. It was a very interesting period. It was a very hard period. I remember that Simchas Torah, that the Rebbe jumped up and started to dance when he started Anigan.
Do you want to say it a little bit?
Okay, I mean, unfortunately, my aunt, my father's brother's wife, she was 37 years old, and she had a group of young children, and she encountered Yana Machle, and within months she was gone. Sukkot. The Levaya was Chalamoyed, so they didn't sit Shiva yet. And it came Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah. My uncle used to go to a shul to be Mesameach. So he took the kids, Ta'alucha. So he took the kids with him. And then came to the Farbrengen. He was the one who started the Nigunim. So at one point, he started, the famous Freiliche Nigen. The Rebbe gave a jump up, kicked the chair back, and started to dance with a millendige Ernstkeit. It was definitely connected. It was very clear. It was a scene to see the Rebbe. Mamash, I've never seen the Rebbe should kick his chair. He jumped up. So that I'm saying, Bechal, the whole Chiluk there, the Rebbe pushed him, and the Rebbe lived with. The Rebbe looked after. The Rebbe pushed him later on to look for a shidduch, and the Rebbe pushed the shidduch. It was.
And so you're saying he had a big influence on you. I mean, there's a lot of we have a lot of the Mishpacha printed things that he wrote right from before the Nasias when he was there. So there's a.
I can't skip to say that he definitely gave me a tremendous Chassidish Warmkeit, dedication to the Rebbe, not to do a thing without the Rebbe, and Übergebenkeit. That was, I mean, Rabbi Yosef, obviously, I don't have to say, but from both sides, I owe them both a tremendous amount of Hakoros HaTev. And then Chaverim definitely helped, the good Chaverim, the tremendous group. I want to skip, as I said, to before the Einas HaShiduchim. When my parents were in Eretz Yisrael, so somebody proposed a certain name. I gave it to, and my sister was married already, and my uncles. They looked into it, and the report came that it could be suitable. And it was the first time I wrote to the Rebbe about a shidduch. And I wrote that this one and this one was Matzia me, this and this shidduch. And they looked into it, and it seems reasonable. And I asked the Rebbe, A, should I be interested in shidduchim? And if yes, is this shidduch suitable? And I don't know what came to me, but I ended up writing that since my whole life I'm hoping to go on Shlichus, and the father of the Meduberes is in business, I wrote the words Hayim yesh lachsheish, that will distract Shlichus. And the Rebbe responded, Yesh lachsheish.
Wow.
Gendigt.
Wow. So
that's it. I never saw her. That was it.
So your Pasha had a schus to see the Rebbe Mamish directing you in the shidduch.
I think that's it was actually when my current the next shidduch that came serious was my wife. My shver was also in business and shmatis. So, but I know I have to ask.
Right.
So I asked the same question. The Rebbe crossed it out, Lisanyan. And then I had another shaila, and the Rebbe Lahamshich. I had Baruch Hashem full deck of direction. Onomedim LaHashem, yeah. That Mamish, the Rebbe, was interested in every single way of development,
right,
of molding me as a person. And
befrat that you have the same chashash by your wife, and
I wrote the same words. After I know already what I have to do, right?
Right.
The Rebbe answered me clear, yesh lachsheish. I didn't expect such words, right? But the Rebbe crossed it out, Lisanyan.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very interesting. And then I had a Yechidus with the Rebbe before the Chasana, which also I can even sagen a word that was the Gele Rabbi, not the Gele Rabbi.
What year?
Lamedalet. I became a Chosen Lamedalet right after Tishrei. And that's negate take at the time, because summer Lamed Gimel, the Rebbe made a sudden visit to the Kotel, Yadua. The Rebbe was extremely unhappy. I'm not going to the details. I was still in yeshiva. But the Rebbe then, I remember,
Rebbe was unhappy with what he saw in the Kotel.
Yeah. There was first expression the Rebbe wants to close the Kotel. And I remember the Rebbe used the word, you didn't learn in yeshiva, what are you doing in Kotel? Something along those lines. So in my mind, I was thinking, I wasn't the biggest masmid in yeshiva. Do I have to go to Kotel? The Rebbe is not happy. I'll go on Shlichus right away. Now, Harakala, the fact that we're going on Shlichus was lekaim l'shayla. There was no question. Before I saw there was a commitment that we're going on Shlichus. There was no shayla about it. But she wanted us to go for a year to Kotel. We're going on Yechidus before the Chasana. So we have to write to a Rebbe to ask what to do after the Chasana. So it became a shayla, how do you write? Because I wanted to write, we're asking the Rebbe what to do, where to go. But she wanted to write that she wants me to go to Kotel. For a year, clear. I said, again, it was not a shayla about Shlichus. So we decided to write each one the way we wrote one settle, but we wrote that the negeh to istadus after the chasana. So the Kala wants I should go to Kotel for 1 year. We're asking the Rebbe what to do. That's all we wrote. I didn't want to write that I don't want. The Rebbe took the settle, looked at it, and started to smile. And he said, you're right that she wants you should go to Kotel. Aber lernen darfst du doch. You need to be the one to learn. And the Rebbe stopped, and he's waiting for an answer. To be honest, I didn't know where to bury myself. What should I say to the Rebbe? Anyway, I uttered, if the Rebbe halt, als ich darf gehen in Kotel, will ich gehen in Kotel. If the Rebbe holds that I should go to Kotel, I'm ready to go. So the Rebbe says, aber es darf sein, or es muss sein, I don't remember for sure, es muss sein or es darf sein, mit der Simcha betuv levov. And he stops, and he's waiting again. So I have to answer. So I said, if the Rebbe halt ich soll gehen in Kotel, is das mit der Simcha betuv levov. So the Rebbe said like this, Eber si mit der Simcha betuv levov, it is sehr a gleiche Sache auf ein Jahr. If it is with a simcha v'tuv livov, with a joyous, glad heart, then it's the right thing for 1 year. So that was it about that. But the Rebbe wanted to hear clear. It's not it's mit simcha v'tuv livov. And even after I said, if the Rebbe halt, as ich darf gehen in Kotel, it is mit it was a name. Eber si mit simcha v'tuv livov. It's a gleiche Sache. That was also a clear direction. I was in Kotel for 1 year. Baruch Hashem, a very good year in Kotel. And to the date, Rosh Chodesh Iyar, I went out. I got married Beis Nissen. So I went in Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Rosh Chodesh Iyar, I went out to Kotel.
A year later.
A year later, I was there exactly a year. So again, Berel Shem Tov from Detroit came to me with a proposal that for the summer I should come for 2 months to be the camp rabbi. I don't have yet any. I didn't want to hear anything during the year. The Rebbe told me to learn. That's it.
Among Chassidim is brought to you by Chassidische Der Herr. We live in a chaotic world, a world where for us Chassidim, as a seinu, lei ra'inu, we do not have the ability to hear and see the Rebbe on a daily basis. Yet we know that the Rebbe is very much with us, and the Chassidus Chabad is alive and thriving more than ever before. One needs to only tap into it. Chassidische Der Herr provides you and your family with the tools necessary to tap into all of this. Whether it's the monthly magazine, the way it all began, whether it's Der Herr books, Der Herr online content, and so much more. Men, women, and children throughout the world benefit and use these tools on a daily basis. Whether it's children enjoying the children's magazine that comes along with the regular Der Herr, or enjoying the children's podcast, whether it's Bachrim in yeshivas receiving the Der Herr, whether it's girls in high schools enjoying Der Herr club in their local high school. People all over the world and from all walks of life enjoy and utilize these tools and take advantage of it. If you're not already subscribed to the Herr Monthly Magazine, do so today at derher.org. That's derher.org. Der Herr is a dynamic organization which is committed to continue providing these tools, grow on a constant basis, and do all that we can to help this effort. Baruch Hashem, it takes a lot of resources and finances to make this all happen. You can be part of Der Herr through your financial support as well, through visiting our website derher.org, or through contacting us to setting up a meeting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So I didn't have anything yet. Stam names, all kinds of. So I asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answered me immediately. Came out the zettel, Dover Kovua. Should be something permanent, not temporary.
If you're doing Shlichus, it should be...
It was not a shaila. It was definitely Shlichus, but permanent. Don't take part time. Don't take.
The Hatzah was the Shlichus.
The Shlichus will wait instead of starting looking now. You look after summer.
Uh-huh.
And the Rebbe said no. So then I put in, there was a few atzoes, and the Rebbe circled Toronto. So that Baruch Hashem, in 2 weeks we're celebrating 50 years Shlichus in Toronto.
So the way it worked was you were Hatzos. That was the
yeah. That was normal. Gave in various places that proposed, and the Rebbe directed us.
So before we go into Shlichus, I just want to step one step back. Were there any? Is there anything from Yechidus or things when you were a Bacher that you want to share?
I can say one thing that stands out. Otherwise, I don't think I had anything in those years. Something that I would give a bracha. Again, on a personal, that I looked at it very, very personal. It was in one of the Yechidus, I wrote about my learning, and suddenly the Rebbe is asking me, "Where is dein Chavruse in Nigle?" Rebbe asked me, "Who do you learn with, Nigle?" So I said, the Rebbe said, "Zostem zogen, as noch dem, was mir lernt, ob a stickel Gemorre, a stickel Teisves, darf man überreden, auswenig, was man hat gelernt." That was my, after we learned a piece of Gemorre or Teisves, we should repeat it by heart, what we learned. So that was, I felt that Bichlal, that the Rebbe had a personal, it wasn't just another thing. It was a personal touch that the Rebbe gave me a I had to learn.
Had to learn,
yeah. That was something I thought that, Bichlal, the Rebbe touched upon everything. The Rebbe gave us clear horaos in everything we did. At least I can talk for myself. I was zeiche that we had Yechidus before we went to Toronto.
What happened?
So, first of all, we didn't have children yet. The Rebbe gave us a brocha, Meshana Mokem, Meshana Mazel, that when you change a place, you have a change in your Mazel. Baruch Hashem.
You wrote to the Rebbe about children?
Yes. So we were at that time already a year and a half, and nothing happened, over a year and a half, and nothing happened. So we wrote. It wasn't a disaster, but the Rebbe gave us a bracha. The Rebbe gave my wife $10 to give out to anyone that she will be mashpia to start to light Shabbos candles, and a book of matches for the Rebbe's chesima. So that was we had. The Rebbe gave us a lot of brachas then.
The Rebbe had that ready before?
Yeah, this is from the drawer the Rebbe took out. The Rebbe gave brachas, tzloche, Shlichus. During the Shlichus, I also had Baruch Hashem private moments, so to speak. Not Yechidus. That was my last Yechidus by the Rebbe before we get Shlichus. Then we couldn't go any Yechidus. But I had a few private moments that were very, very strong, so to speak. Besides Setlach, that we had constantly answers. I want to maybe repeat a few episodes, not just Yechidus. One day, I was standing in line by dollars, and before me stood a younger man from Crown Heights. I'm not going to mention his name. With his son. The son was younger than me, so he was either older teenager or something like that. And the son,
what do you mean older than you?
The son was younger than me a little bit. The son was by dollars. We were going by dollars.
To later years, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The son went off a little bit. It was a bit longer hair, but whatever. And apparently he was not by the Rebbe for a while. And as the father came with the son to the Rebbe, I was standing behind. The son introduced, "This is my son, so-and-so." The Rebbe said, "Halvai volt getracht wegen mir, wie viel ich tracht wegen ihm." I wish that he would think about me as much as I think about him. So this is a very powerful message from the Rebbe, how the Rebbe cared. Every single child. This I felt it had to be shared. One of my famous moments with the Rebbe. You know what? Let me retract first and just mention, I think since I'm already telling special moments, with the Rebbetzin Chayamushke, I had 2 times that I had a small interaction with her. One time was by the Seder, and I'll explain what it was. It's known that the Rebbe, for as long as his mother-in-law was alive, he was inviting the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin to the Seder. And the Rebbe conducted the Seder, and to the Seder, anybody who wanted was able to come in. So the Bochrim, whoever came, there was a group of special, unique individuals that were invited to the Seder, and they were sitting, and we stood around the table. And the Rebbetzins had their own room in the dinette. That's where they had the Seder. I didn't have a family in New York, so the Seder took 20 minutes or a half hour.
You ate in the yeshiva.
In the yeshiva, so the first night the Rebbe used to come to visit. Before the Rebbe Seder, he went to the yeshiva. So when the Rebbe came, we were already all the kaira, the Seder plate was prepared by us, full cup of wine. The Rebbe went around and gave a bracha. Sometimes the Rebbe, I remember that year, the Rebbe, they prepared the small little glass plates, very small, for the minim, in order it shouldn't wet the
The
matzah.
matzah.
So the Rebbe looked at it. He says, again, I don't remember the lashon, but the Rebbe says there has to be only 6 things on the matzahs. In other words, that this is a dover choshuv. So the Rebbe didn't like it. And then the Rebbe gave a bracha. But as soon as the Rebbe left, we made kiddush and made tzimatzah morikeh for a second. And in all the time when we came upstairs, the Rebbe was not there yet. Because the Rebbe gave out matzahs. The Rebbe was not there yet. That was Chof Zayin, both Dorim, and Chof Ches, both Dorim. Chof Tes, first Seder, there was a large group came from Eretz Yisrael, and somehow more Bochrim stayed. The pushing was unbelievable. It's a very interesting Seder. Remember, I stood right behind the Rebbe. And the Rebbe, the Leis and Floes Gdelis, the Rebbe did with his hand. Leis and Floes Gdelis Levade Kele. And then they started to say, at the end, the Rebbe started processing Station Yerushalayim, and he started to make with his hands, and the Elom, after Dalit cases, the table started to move, a chair broke, and one of the guests fell down, and it was not a pretty sight, Begashmias. Derech Hagav, that Seder, I remember a Bocher who stood behind the Friedrich Rebbe's chair. The Rebbe was not sitting at the head of the table. There was a set chair with everything in front of the Friedrich Rebbe's head at the table. And the Rashag, the Rebbe's brother-in-law, sat on the right side, the Rebbe sat on the left side. But the Bochim were all around. So this particular Bocher stood behind the Friedrich Rebbe's chair. And that year was extremely pushing. And so by, subconsciously, the Bocher put his hand on the Friedrich Rebbe's chair. The Rebbe gave him such a look. I actually saw him not long ago. He asked him if he remembers that look. He'll never forget it in his life. The Rebbe is here. How dare you touch? That's a stammer detail that I thought. There's a lot to talk about the Seder, but others are, I'm sure, has it already. But
you could do a whole podcast on the Seder.
The Seder alone, yeah. So, Baruch Hashem, I was there 6 Dorim.
Uh-huh.
I want to say something specific. So, because there was a chaos, and some of the guests came over to the Alter Rebbetzin and told her that they will not come if the Bochum come in. So, I don't know who called the Anholer of Rabbi Mentlik, David Raskin, and told them that they will not let in anybody till after Shvei Chamoscho. And even then, they'll let a little bit at a time. So they came and announced in Yeshiva, in the Seder, that no one should rush. We were a small group of Bochim, and we decided we're going. They won't let us in. So they won't let us in. I believe there was 10, 12 Bachrim. I don't think it was much more than that. We stood, when you go upstairs, there's the landing, the upstairs landing, before the door.
Mm-hmm.
We stood there. The guests were in there already. We stood. The Bachrim, what are you doing here? We're not bothering anybody. We stood in the hallway, period. After a while, the door opens, and the Rebbetzin, Chaim came out. Of course, we moved aside, and she went down to the Rebbe's room. She went into the Rebbe. She was there for a few minutes. The Rebbe was not upstairs yet.
He didn't come in.
No. And then she comes out, she goes up, and she turns to us and says, Seid sehr gut. Macht Platz für die Gäste zu durchgehen. Make room for the guest to pass by. Which guest? The guest was in. It's for the Rebbe. A minute later, the Rebbe's door opened. The Rebbe started to come up. We stood aside. She opened the door, and she held her hand on the knob like. As the Rebbe came in, she made with her head, come in. So she let us in, and she locked the door behind us. So this group had the privilege to be there for a whole Seder, second night of this.
The Rebbetzin.
The Rebbetzin let us in. So that's one of the encounters I had on a personal level with her. Afterwards, by upbringing, the Rebbe spoke a whole sikh about it, but that's not negeya her. The second encounter I had with her, also on a personal level, is the Rebbe used to come 770, whatever time it was, 10, 11. There was a Seder that the Bochrim used to go to the Rebbe's house, and the Rebbetzin used to prepare a thermos with hot water, I believe, in a paper bag to bring. We used to go home, pick it up. The Rebbetzin used to prepare it between the door and the screen door.
In the front room.
The front door, between the outside door and the second. There's a swinging door.
They call it a mud room. The mud room.
Not in the room. I'm talking outside.
But there's not in the house?
Outside.
Outside.
The front door is in front door there was like a screen door. So between that, it was on the floor. So it came out. Meir Harlik was Memuna. Every time someone else went. So I came out a few times that I also went. It was a spring day that I went to get the. As I was approaching the house, I see that the Rebbetzin is outside. Rebbetzin was on the landing where the grass she picked up. Flowers, I don't know. She was outside in the garden, like in the front yard, all the way in the front. I wouldn't, I go, I do my, I wouldn't. All of a sudden, she saw me. She turned to me and she started to say, "Oi, seid sehr gut. Ihr müsst mir entschuldigen." She didn't prepare the thermos yet. She was talking with such a, like I'm the prime minister. With such a little kid, yeah. Seid sehr gut, ihr reinkommen und zuwarten. 2 Minuten. I didn't want to go in at that time to go into the Rebbe's house. It was who went into the Rebbe's were not there, but who goes into the Rebbe's house? This is, but she insisted that I should go in. I went in and I was glued to the door, to the outside door, like I was. It took 2 minutes. She prepared it, and she came back and gave it to me, and again apologized. So that was a personal encounter I had with Rebbetzin. And so she cared. She took your time. It doesn't matter who you are. So that's time I wanted to mention. It was probably something interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to say before, I used to bring a lot of groups to the Rebbe from time to time.
Adayim.
Adayim, you'll hear why Adayim.
Okay.
Adayim, Bechlal used to bring groups, all kinds of groups. It was from time to
Shabbos.
time. For Shabbos, yeah, but they're close for Shabbos. Sometimes later on for dollars, sometimes depending. Not only for Shabbos. And to be honest, my personal brachas that I got from the Rebbe was when I brought groups, perhaps more than other times. The Rebbe gave me very, very strong brachas, personal, when I brought groups. He told me that one time, Yarich Yom Mal Mamlachte, and but that particular Shabbos, I brought quite 50 people, about a full bus. Noshim Vataf. We stayed in the Crown Palace Hotel. It used to be the Grace Palace. And Friday, I used to give into the Rebbe a reshima, a list of Shmom v'Shemimom, the names, mother's names of all the participants, and the itinerary. Nabal Lamashke. So that Shabbos was Shabbos and Vochimov. The reason it was Shabbos and Vochimov, at that time the Rebbe didn't forbring every Shabbos. The only Vade forbringen was Shabbos and Vochim. And Ov was the lightest Shabbos in 770. The kids are in camp, the counselors are in camp, Bochum, American Shlichus. So it was an easier time to come. So I gave in the zettel, an itinerary, and at the end of the Verbringen, the Rebbe said that die was gestellt Maschke, sollen jetzt aufgehen und Machke sein. Those who gave in Maschke should come up and announce what the mashke was about. That was so. I came up actually with my colleague Moshe Spalter. We were both there. The Rebbe took the bottle and poured a little bit to both of us, said l'chaim, and then the Rebbe said like this: "Es steht horeya te'eno shebikro kerech oleo gemi umizmachris tishna l'shon haba." I'm not sure if it was Tishna Lashon Haba, Tiske Lashon Haba, whatever it is, that was the Rebbe's words to us. Which means that it's written that when you see a fig that is about to ripen, you take a bag and you cover it, and you have to take it to Yerushalayim as Bikurim, the first fruits. And when you come, you're getting the blessing, you should repeat or merit next year to do again. So that was first of all, we see that the Rebbe called bringing people to the Rebbe Bikurim. I said this is mamish. The Rebbe told me. I mean, it was other people heard it too, but the Rebbe told it to me personally that you should bring people to Bikurim. So I took it literally, and the next year I brought a group to the Rebbe the same Shabbos. And I was zeichet that the Rebbe spoke a whole sicha for the group that came from Toronto. It's interesting, when the Rebbe was Magia, the sicha, the Rebbe crossed out the word Toronto and wrote Tes with a dat. I don't know why, but this is, in the Hanocha, you'll see,
Tes.
like Tes with a dat. That's the Rebbe's correction. That second year, the Rebbe spoke a whole sicha. And what is interesting from that second year was the Rebbe spoke, why are you bringing a group? They have over there a shul and shiurim and all's good and fine. And there's still Tula de Garvre, till Tula de Urche. The person gets tired and you're moving. But the idea is to come to be together, davening together, learning together, and the Rebbe mentioned, and to go to the Tzion together. to go to the oil, to the Tzion together. That was not on our itinerary.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time we didn't go to the oil. It wasn't what the Rebbe said. We had to change the whole itinerary with the bus. It was a whole geschäft. But from then on, we started to make sure that we go to the oil together. That was Ayro from the Rebbe. The Rebbe told us also, the Rebbe said like this, when the Rebbe gave L'chai, the Mashke, the Rebbe said, Teil do a bissel, you should give out a little bit here, and the rest, you should have verbringen in Toronto, bal geht doch Shabbos Chazon. No, bal geht doch Shabbos Nachamu. And the Rebbe started, aber früher geht doch Shabbos Chazon. Rebbe Levitzchok, Barditchever sagt, als man beweist jeden Nieden den dritten bis am Mikdosh, ist der Hemmscher soll sein in Toronto Shabbos Chazon. The Rebbe says, you should have the continuation of this Farbrengen in Toronto. At first the Rebbe said, it's Shabbos Nachamu. And the Rebbe said, but before that is Shabbos Chazon. And Chazon, Rebbe Levitzchok says that they're showing each and every Jew the third Beis Hamikdash. So you should make the continuation in Toronto, Shabbos Chazon. So that was, again, I wrote that I had from the Rebbe clear. And then the next year I brought again. The Rebbe spoke again as Siche. The Rebbe did not mention Toronto the third year, but the Rebbe spoke about the kvutze that came, the group that came, and concluded the Siche, so the kvutze and the Eimet Bereishom should start the Nigun of Horatzto. So that was 3 years in a row.
Right.
So Baruch Hashem, since then, excluding the year of COVID, the years 2 years of COVID, this is my Shabbos to bring a group.
Shabbos,
Mevorchim, and
Shabbos. Yeah, I've been by the oil before when the Kutza was there.
That's why it's this Shabbos and not our Shabbos. Shabbos Mevorchim Ov. That's became since Tovshin Nun Hey, I believe. Mem Hey. From Mem Hey. It's over 40 years, Baruch Hashem.
There's a group.
That we're bringing a group.
And there was, you brought the group the dollars. Were there inyanim that happened then by dollars?
There was all kinds of inyanim. I don't have it clear. There was one guy, some with Romania, with Yugoslavia. I don't remember it because I don't want to repeat it. There's a famous video that I brought the group, and one guy that was a guest from Eretz Yisrael, he asked me if he can join, which I did not know who he was. So obviously, he said, you want to go to the Rebbe? So he came with us, and by dollars, he stopped the Rebbe and spoke to the Rebbe about giving back land. And this is a famous 10-minute video that the Rebbe speaks to him. He was one of the heads of the Shalom Achshav.
Oh, yeah, that video, yeah.
So that's one of my...
So you didn't know Bachal he's going to do this?
No, I did not. I'm standing there right behind him.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Because that was one of the people that I brought to the Rebbe, not knowing who he was.
Right. He came to say the opposite.
He came to try to debate, to change. I mean, whatever. But,
it's very good. I'm saying it's very, for us Chassidim, especially today.
Yeah, it's a very interesting video. There are a lot of interesting vertlach that the Rebbe. I should also mention 1 year was before dollars, not Shabbos Mevorchim. I think it was in the summer, but I don't remember exactly when. I brought a group, not large, and I think Zusha Zilberstein from Montreal also brought a group for that Shabbos. Sunday morning, we all stood in the foyer. The Rebbe comes from the house, say Fortgesundheit or something. And again, I am not clear what took place, but the Rebbe sent out to each and every one of us Tfilas Haderech on a sticker.
Right.
Let me pull it out. So
You carry it in your wallet?
I carry it in my wallet. It's not new already, but this is the obviously
Put a little closer. Ah.
it was on a sticker
Uh-huh.
on a roll, and each one got one.
That's not a regular thing. Klal.
That's why I'm repeating things that were unique. Otherwise, what's the point of repeating? So this I got also. I told you that when I brought groups, I had on a personal level such a. I felt that the Rebbe wanted it. The Rebbe Beferish wanted we should bring people to the Rebbe.
Yeah.
And not wanted, the Rebbe wants. And I believe that to bring to the Rebbe Bikurim is a mitzvah. And they say, Rabim lechure. Although I heard it myself, but
let me ask you a question. Is there any other story you want to share? Because I want to ask you a different type of question.
Go ahead.
I'm listening to everything that you're saying, from your father, Zaydas, and Chassidim that you were around, and then hearing from the Rebbe Alein, the importance of Shlichus, what you mentioned by Rabbi Chavdakov. So it seems that, I'm especially thinking about the letter that the Rebbe wrote to your mother about the tafkid of Dereinu, or what our job is in this generation.
Yeah.
So this was all happening live then, and you experience it happening, in real time. My question is that for today's youth in Galayit and Bachrim, it's still the tafkid dereinu. So how do we impart or live with this, knowing the importance of the job of our generation? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I'm going to try to answer, but there's another story, which is, I think, a very powerful story that I want to share with you. So I can either share it before your question or after your question.
Share the story.
Yeah, because this is something that is not as known. It's not known unless a few people that heard it. It was Tishrei Chov Beis. My father, 4 years, wasn't by the Rebbe, and he had the tremendous yearning to come to the Rebbe. It was the second year where he established the new school in Cholon, and my father established Cholon, and afterward he established the school in Natzeret, and my father was a tremendous activist. And he wanted to come. But Tishri is the beginning of the year. So somehow he's mefakeach for Misrad HaChinuch. He was not a oyev. He said he said he can't go. I listened to him. So again, without going into details,
But they work for the Misrad HaChinuch. That's the setup.
Yeah, he got us. Yeah, officially, the Rebbe insisted. Derech Hagav, the Rebbe insisted not to go into Chinuch Atzmoi, Nagude, but to go under Mamlachti Dati, independent, not Mizrochi, not attached to any party, but under Mamlachti, clear, under the government. The Mamlachti Dati Chabad. That's it. The kids of my father decided he's leaving. He arranged a substitute with Al Zachen, and he came to New York. He came to New York, so the way I remember it is Chadakov called him and told him that if he would be Elter Chosid, he would be told to fly right back. But this he's not being told, but he's in Eretz Yisrael, and all the answers he'll get there. He came with that permission.
He's in Eretz Yisrael.
No, yeah,
You don't exist here.
yeah. The Rebbe didn't answer longtime. No kosher brocha, no yechidus, of course, nothing. You can imagine what kind of by the way, then to come to the Rebbe was a half a year salary. You can imagine what he felt like. The majority of the crowd did not know about it. Just a few very intimate friends. So there was, I mean, I can say who it was. A chassid by the name of Meir Blizhinsky. Chassid from Eretz Yisrael. A legend in his own name. He went in on Yechidus. When he was on Yechidus, he decided to tell the Rebbe, he said that Gansburg is here and he's so heartbroken. Maybe the Rebbe should let him in. On his own, he asked the Rebbe. The Rebbe responded, and that's what telling you the way it is. As a steht, I'll say it in Yiddish first. As a steht a Soldat auf dem Front und hört, dass der Melech kommt in der Bikerplatz und wird ablosen sein Post und gehen sehen der Melech. The Rebbe lifted himself from the chair. He says, bei sei hab ich doch nicht was zu sitzen. When you send a soldier on the front and he hears that the king comes in a nearby place and he will leave his post and go and see the king, the Rebbe said, if so, I have no reason to sit here. In other words, you got to be a soldier that listens to what he says. So, I mean, obviously, he left the way he came. Then he got letters from the Rebbe. I mean, Baruch Hashem, my father had afterwards a lot of kiruvim to the Rebbe. This you did wrong. Be aware. And that's it. You're a soldier. A soldier needs to listen. And I think this is a very, very strong lesson, which I have in my life. I think about it many times. We're soldiers. We're shluchim, but the shlichus has to be that you have to know you have a boss. And you can do what you feel. Even if spiritually you feel that this is uplifting you, you got to know if this is your post now. You can't go away from your post. So I learned a tremendous lesson from this story. So I felt that I should share it.
Okay, I think you answered my question.
Okay, I don't remember what exactly your question was now, but...
okay, the Yadadainen has to know that we have a post.
Absolutely.
The Rebbe gives us a post.
Yeah, we were assigned, and Baruch Hashem, I know that this is my shlichus in life, and everybody has to know that they have their shlichus in life, and changing is that's what the Rebbe wants us to do, and that's what we need to do, and that's what we continue to do. Emir Shem Tov will see the Rebbe again.
Amen. Should be taken from Yad. Should be
Amen.
Memale the Shlichus.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, Ashkecher Rabbi Gansburg, and you said it's 50 years, right?
50 years, yeah.
So should be a good aschalda for the next 50 years.
Amen.
After the Mili HaShlichus is also Shlichus.
Let him come already. From then on, we'll
figure it out. Okay, sei gesund and Tzlacha Rabbi. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for listening. I hope that some benefit will come out of it.
I believe that a tremendous amount will. So,
Okay, sei gesund.